Hey Collective, it's Al coming to you with a very special message that I did not think I would be recording today for the YouTube audience surrounding the energies that are amidst the election in the American territory right now, and kind of the things that we as spiritualists need to be aware of as we head into this season. It is important to note that the election happens in Scorpio season for a particular reason. Scorpio season and Scorpio as a sign is known as the test for souls. It's the incarnation where they prove themselves worthy to the great architect or to the divine, whatever you call it. And it seems apropos that it would happen at that time when we are indeed going through the ending testing phases before we send into 2025. As many of you know, especially those of you that saw the last post, I've been very focused on the teachers dressed as students and the delegates who will be voting on a much more cosmic scale at the end of this month and all of the things that you need to turn in by that time. But I did mention the fact that the election would be a turning point for the collective. And so as I woke up today, the energy and the word that I heard most prevalent, which made me even want to record the video, was the word despair. And so I wanted to speak to that as a spiritualist and as just a basic human being that is part of our collective that is the American person. And the truth is that when we head into elections, there seems to be a very personalized expression of how we deal with the energies that surround that type of thing. And one of the things that we fall into is this thing where we personalize the outcome, knowing that at least half of the population will have a tower moment come the end of it. So it's kind of one of those things that's kind of counterintuitive that we participate in, part of the matrix, that is both relevant and kind of irrelevant at the same time. So what I mean is this. The only thing you can do as a citizen in this world is to be heard. And the only thing you can do to be heard is to cast your vote. And I don't care which direction, whether you're left or whether you're right. The important thing is to show up, make yourself be objective as much as you can be, show up, cast your vote, and then be heard that way. Because many of you who are very spiritual are seeking positions and titles and things and power down the road and dreams coming true that rely heavily on using your voice in the right alignment with the divine. So you missing out on this is big no-no. So for those of you who have been on the fence about whether or not you should vote or not, this is a massive turning point heading into a massive reset where a lot is pending on the outcome of what happens here. And so it's very important for me as a spiritualist to remind the rest of you that no matter what resting of laurels you are upon, to remember that if you want to be counted at the higher levels, you must first be accounted for in the present, in the physical form. So it's very important for you to set aside your belief in the matrix being corrupt or whatever it is and realize the only way to change the corruption is to be the vote that they did not see coming and show up. And it's super relevant right now as we head into this, especially for those of you who are asking for dreams or aspirations to somehow have a public-facing thing. If you can't even vote on behalf of your own nation and about yourself and about your family, then why would anybody hand you the keys to a kingdom that has a great more community members in it? They're not going to. So for those of you dressed as teachers dressed as students, for those of you who are delegates, or those of you who are kind of journalists for the divine on the ground, we are expecting you to show up without any reservation. If you have any issues with it, I suggest you talk to the divine now, because there are apparently people waiting to take your spot as a delegate if you don't. Basic, simple 101. If you're a student within the academy and you want to be a co-creator in the future, then you have to be counted for. And that means you have to share your opinion and you have to go in there as best you can. And remember that if you want to be heard in this world, that it is through your voice, and in this case, in your casting a ballot. That's as much as I'm going to say. I'm not on a soapbox about the subject. But I will say that there is a massive tower moment coming for half of you. One of the big things that happens within this type of system is polarization. And if we are indeed polarized to the magnitude that they're claiming we're polarized, half of you are going to be upset by the end of this. And it's important for us to monitor and center our energies as much as we physically can, knowing that we are compassionate and loving people, to understand that we don't always get our way. And we have to be ready mentally and physically for the repercussions if things don't go our way. And here's what I mean. Sometimes the greatest catalyst for change is a letdown. It allows people who are on the fence or maybe not in the proper alignment or not taking the right appropriate actions to suddenly be propelled forward out of sheer shock and out of the fact that they're outraged. And outraged in right alignment moves you, and it moves you forward like a charioteer, blasting past the sphinxes and hitting their mark. So even if you feel like on the front end you are losing this conversation or this particular situation, the truth is that it might be the propelling force that moves you to where you need to be for your goals and aspirations in life. So that's one. Number two, the energy in the collective right now is absolutely off the chain. It is really, 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 really scorpionic. And a lot of you are going to feel it in different ways. So it's important to be centered and be whole in this moment and to find as much peace as you can leading into it. Because either direction this goes, understand that there's going to be repercussions that filter out like a wave from either direction. One will claim fraud if they don't get their way and throw massive temper tantrums, and the other one might claim fraud for another set of reasons. So there is going to be an extension of all of this that's going to play out as we head into the holy holidays that is the birth of the big JC. So it's important, like I said, to be in a place of gratitude and grace as we enter into the Thanksgiving holiday. For those of you who are American, please get out there and vote. It is your only voice, and if you want to be heard at the higher realms, you first have to be physically present and cast your vote. That's as much as I'm going to tell you about what to do here. If you choose not to vote, you really don't have any room to complain, and just know that if you don't use your voice, you tend not to be heard anymore. So that's up to you. But for those of you moving forward, understand that if you are a delegate, a teacher dressed as a student, or a journalist on the ground on behalf of the divine, you then have added responsibilities to then cast your vote about the whole spectrum of downloads that you'll be receiving from here on out to the end of November, and to just be as objective as you can. This is a great opportunity to learn as a student. And what I mean is, if you are just a person stumbling upon this video and you don't know me from Adam, I'm just going to say this. The pendulum always swings. It's what causes change. The pendulum can go from far right to far left. One of the greatest objectives any student within the Great Earth Academy can do is to learn to get off of the pendulum and become the observer in order to understand and ascertain what the next set of dominoes are going to be. And that takes foreshadowing, and it takes a bit of intuitive nature, and it takes a lot of stamina in order to sit there and observe it objectively and not get tied into it. And I'll give you a personal attestation for what I mean. I was in New Orleans when What's-His-Face won the last time. I was living there. And when we saw that person won, the entire location that I was at began to cry. And I was completely confused by their reaction. Because I was like, it's not the end of the world. It just means that we have a set of situations, another set of circumstances, another set of tests that we must all pass collectively. Why are you personalizing it to such a degree that you're releasing such heavy woe upon the world? And it's one of those things that's easier said than done, and it takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of life in order to condition you into reacting into the matrix so direly that you affect the outcome for other people, right? Because I know that we can get emotional, but it's not the end of the world unless we make it the end of the world. And when you release that amount of energy as a delegate or as an advanced student, you affect other people around you, and it creates a negative domino effect that didn't need to be there. If you don't win this election, if your side or whatever your objectives are not met, then this is a great opportunity for you to spring forward and become the leader and the teacher or the master that you're meant to be. It just needed this catalyst of change to happen. So it's not a moment where you should implode. It's a moment where you should go upwards and find your light and find your way. It's a super important part of the testing phase that goes with the adulting that humanity is going through. There's a lot that can be said, both positive and negative, about each candidate. But whatever the outcome is, my point is, do not personalize something that is based on a greater collective. There is a lot that has been corrupted and a lot that's just put on for show in order to feed off of the negative energy that you produce when you allow yourself to be part of the pendulum, where you become a puppet that can be fed off by your energies. And it's super important for spiritualists who are anointed with extra energy and extra gifts from the great architect, from God, from the divine, whatever you call it, to be centered, to not feed that amount of energy into the negative forces that feed off of the pain and suffering of human beings. It's an objective standpoint that's really hard to attain, but once you understand it on a grace level and as a leader or as a teacher, you learn how to step back from the situation and observe it. Because when you are clear in crisis, you know exactly what road to take. But when you're lost to emotion over it, you get confused, and it can put you in dire situations and circumstances. And it's very important for us to band together as spiritualists, as teachers, as leaders, as friends, as colleagues, as cohorts, whatever you want to call it, to support each other without taking other people's energy on. Meaning, I know that many of you are going to be heartbroken if it doesn't go your way. But that's part of life. It's kind of like you want something to happen in your life and it doesn't work out, but yet something better happens down the road. It's kind of one of those things. But sometimes it takes complete chaos or destruction in order for beauty and true aspiration and true change to affect the great many. Again, it's a awakening. It's the awakening of the mass population. And some of the corruption and sheer crimes and stuff like that have to be seen first. And the only way to be seen is for it to happen. So things are about to happen that are meant to happen. And you're going to have your wits about you and to understand how to observe it as opposed to be like sucked into it. Because you're going to be super important to uplifting the people around you if you can do that. Right? There's nothing worse than what I mean, I had to remove myself the last time that this guy ran. I had to leave the location I was at because I got the giggles. It reminded me of Mary Tyler Moore at the funeral where she starts giggling over the death of the clown. Suddenly it just randomly happens. I was that person. Because it's like, why are you all crying? It's not the end of the... Like, it was so weird to me to see people react so detrimentally to themselves over something that was just a vote. It was very strange to me. And so I had to pull myself down after that, and I've learned what I'm sharing with you now, which is I reacted negatively. I should have been more supportive of the people around me without taking on their energy. But at the time, I just wasn't in the right mind space for it, and instead what I did is I removed myself from the scenario in order to really ground my energy, to not take that on because I wasn't in the right alignment, to then be able to help people understand what I already knew. Instead, I was just taken aback by the sheer reaction of people, the level of despair and the level of unhappiness that the matrix is feeding off of them, that I couldn't really be present for them at the time. So if you have the wherewithal to get off the pendulum and not be swayed and be locked so into something that may indeed be, corrupt as many of you claim it to be, then the only thing you can really do to change it is to be objective, show up and cast your own vote because you are the one that they're not expecting. They already know who's going to vote left and who's going to vote right. It's the people who don't usually vote that are the swing. They're the ones who really can change the demographic. So be that voice. Just show up, do that, and then go home and learn that it's based on a greater whole. And whether it's corrupt or not, it's what's happening in the simulation. So what can we do to adjust it? What can we do to be better the next time? Blah, 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 blah. Because there are ripples that will spread very quickly if it doesn't go a certain way for a particular side of it, who are very, very, very dark. And like temper and the whole thing. But the same can be said for the other side who pretends to be light. Like there's a lot of hypocrisy and greed going on that has to be brought forward, but the only way to see it is for shit to go down sometimes. So be centered and be present so that you can then help other people maybe ground their energy a bit when, if things don't go their way. Because again, it's going to be a tower moment for half of us. It is. It's just the way it's going to be. But the more objective that we are as spiritualists and as friends and as colleagues, the more compassionate we are for what people are feeling, the better we can then help guide them and help them ground their energies for this great season of gratitude and grace. Because remember, I told you guys in the last video, this is the season where the great cosmic vote happens. And if you are going to be ungrateful, this is the worst possible time to do it. So if you don't get your way, you still ground your energy and say, be thankful I got to vote. Thank you, I have a voice. Thank you, I did my due diligence. Thank you for letting me be a citizen of this wonderful country. Whatever it takes to get you into a state of gratitude as we head into the cosmic vote will be super important. And for those of you who don't vote, well, then you don't have a voice in the cosmic vote. They're gonna have to get other people that are replacing you, because if you can't show up for your own nation, then why the hell would you show up for the cosmic order? It's basic 101. But instead of being kind of bitchy about it, what I'm trying to parlay to you guys is don't get sucked into the spectacle of it. This is a ratings thing as well. This feeds into, it's a vote, but you can't change the outcome. All you can do is represent yourself. So the more despair you release into the world, the more anger you release into the world, the more you feed into the energy that they want from you. And that is what the corrupt and the dark forces love. They love to make you be in pain and suffering. So it's important to remove your emotional response as much as you can from it, or if you have it, to ground your energy very quickly and realize, well, now what do we do? Because you always have a choice to make. You don't want to be one of those people that because you don't get your way once or twice along your lifetime, that you just stop voting or you stop being participant in the community, because then you become invisible and then you become redundant to the simulation, and bad things happen to you. These are tests that happen for every American, for everyone in their own nation, their elections all over the world. It's important for you to be counted, but also to ground your energy and understand that it's not the end of the world. But understand going into it that half of you are going to lose, right? The only thing you can do is maybe pray that your side wins if that's how you Oh, you are, excuse me. And then others of you just understand that you're just going to have to be there for other people and help guide them. I have people who are voting against the party I'm voting for. I have people who are voting for me. The people who are voting in the same area that I have cannot shut the hell up and are annoying the hell out of me and are proving themselves to be more detrimental to our side than anyone on the planet Earth. The other side can't even touch how much toxicity has been produced by my side and how much I really can't stand being associated with them. But I'm voting based on my conscience and who I am. And regardless of how I feel about these sides, because it's just a shit show. But regardless, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be the best person I can be. But understand that next time, learning from this moment, one of the things that I will say is moving forward, whoever loses the situation, you have yourselves to blame. You could not stop gloating or being pompous or arrogant or evil or rude and like bombarding, people that are even on your side. You just wouldn't shut up about it. And so you became toxic and you became a poison to your own party. So take your own responsibility in that moment and learn from that and learn to remove the emotion and remove the ability or the tendency to try to bombard other people with your personal opinion, understanding that when you deny someone else their personal opinion of things, you deny yourself in the end. And these are all super important. And the reason I'm being so direct is because the energies are so heavy right now. And I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding why some of us are being so brought down into the ground at such a dire level when you know that the opportunity, it's a 50-50 shot. One side's going to win, one side's going to lose. Your emotional investment in the release of such toxic energy into the ethers can be problematic even to the best of us because it brings us down and then we're depressed or in a lull. Why? It's an election. They happen every 4 years for the president and then every 2 years for the regular stuff. So get out of the matrix mindset so that you can find your freedom. Because many of you are going to ground yourself to such a degree that you're going to feel imprisoned even though you have not yet been in prison. And their whole goal is to make you give up. That is the goal of the dark forces, is to make you stop using your voice so that you can't be heard at the highest of levels. Because if you cannot show up in the physical form, then why would the higher levels ever hear you if you're not using your voice when you are being granted the greatest gift of all, which is to cast it, to say it. It's a cast. So please understand that as we go into it and try to find as much grace and love and light as you can during this season. Do what I do. Study all of it. You have all these pamphlets. You have everything you need. Show up tomorrow. Cast your vote. Surround yourself with loving energies, people who that you want to be around. Watch the findings if you want to, or do what I do, which is just turn it off, and I'll know when I wake up the next morning. Could care less about the coverage of it. I don't feed into the evil, corrupt energies and how much millions of dollars they make off of promotions or advertising during all of the election. I could care less. I will know when I wake up the next day. And if there's, of course, some corruption, bullshit, and people claiming, I didn't get my way, I'm the victim, all of that stuff, I'm just going to skip over it because at the end of the day, it's going to resolve itself one way or the other. And if you're one of those people who really believe that it's corrupted and that it's already set in stone, that whatever's going to happen is going to happen, then why not be the sword of truth that changes that by showing up? And that's all I'm going to say on it. But understand that the energies are pretty heavy, and it makes sense. We are in Scorpio season. Scorpios is called the test. Remember, Scorpios are scorpions. Their evolved selves become the eagle. They take flight. It's super important. Scorpios, Cancerians are the divine feminine. Scorpios are the test. Pisces is the visionary mind. Capricorn is structure. Everyone has their own. Leo is the lion. It's the outgoing, prideful one that represents a lot of leadership. Each of you have splendid attributes to give. But understand that Scorpio season in particular is known as the test. It's the big cosmic soul test for every soul that they must pass in order to prove themselves worthy of the divine, the great archetype. And so that's why they represent so much shadow. It's why they represent so much confusion and angst sometimes, is because they are literally passing an eternal test. And we, as their contemporaries, are voting in that season. So it's important to stay grounded and to understand that regardless of the outcome, we knew that half of us would lose. But what can we do to win the next time? Don't be mired down. Glow up. Grow up. Learn to understand that it's not your emotional responses best fitting for most people. If you want to be a pioneer or a visionary mind or a leader, it's important to understand how those things drive you, but to not let them disempower you. Because there's nothing more annoying to someone who's in a well-aligned position than someone who just claims victimhood over something that was not personal to begin with. it's really hard as a fellow student or as a teacher. Sorry, it's really hot in here. It's really hard to then talk to somebody or reach to someone because you're in a place of vulnerability where you shouldn't be. That's the place where you gain your strength. There's going to be massive change for those of you who don't get your way, where you're suddenly going to find yourself driven to do something about it. It's going to change your life for the best, but it comes with like a tower moment, something like a negative that's actually a blessing. But if you internalize it in the wrong way, you may lose the doorway that opens to you when you suddenly feel like, I'm going to do something about this. Well, then do it. You're the leader of tomorrow, but you have to go through today to get there. And that's where I want to leave it. I hope you guys have a wonderfully blessed day. I know it's kind of a very direct message, but the energy was so heavy when I woke up this morning and I realized it wasn't mine, that I thought the best thing I could do is just deliver as balanced as I could a message regarding the situation and help empower you guys to just vote. All you can do is show up. The outcome is going to be based on a greater whole. And regardless of all this antics and all the bullshit that's going to come after that, all you can do is be there for each other. And the best way to do it is to be heard. And if you're a delegate, if you're a teacher, just a student, if you are a journalist on the ground, if you work for the divine as a chosen one, you need to vote. Because otherwise, how can you show up for the greater cosmic vote at the end of the month if you don't do the basic one? These are all blessings that we have in a very prominent nation. And though I know that we're going through a lot of turmoil and transition and change, the one thing that they want you to do most is to give up. And where there is no hope, there is no future. And there is absolutely future and hope directly ahead of us if we all get together. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Thank you. Bye.